guys look great. You're welcome. Thanks for coming. How's everyone feeling? We're nearing the end of Friday, so we're going to get some energy up in here. Is everyone with me for that? Okay. Don't worry. I'm going to drag you along whether you like it or not. So, thank you for joining us. This is the Risk of Trust, Social Engineering Threats, and Cyber Defense. My name is Shara DeGrippo. I am Director of Threat Intelligence Strategy here at Microsoft. I am joined by my panelists, Stephanie Carruthers, Chief People Hacker at IBM X-Force, Wei Min Ho, Senior Hunt Analyst here at Microsoft Threat Intelligence, Jack Mott, Senior Security Researcher, Microsoft Threat Intelligence as well. And I want to go through and just kind of quickly hear from my panelists a little bit about themselves, a little bit about their introduction. Stephanie, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so my name is Stephanie Carruthers. I also go by Snow. I have been in the industry for about 10 years now. My title is Chief People Hacker. I promise that's a real title. Most people don't believe me. But I've been at IBM for 5 years now, and pretty much day in, day out, I get to act and lead a team of simulated hackers, specifically in the social engineering space, to find any vulnerabilities before attackers actually find them.
Wei Min, how about you?
Hi, my name is Wei Min Ho. I'm from Microsoft Threat Intelligence, part of the Mystic team. My job is to track financially motivated threat actors. I've been at Microsoft for about a year now. Prior to that, I spent 7 years at the FBI.
Jack, what you got?
My name is Jack Mott, Senior Security Researcher working within Mystic and Microsoft Defender for Office 365, primarily working on detection engineering, threat hunting, focusing on email-based threats.
Does everyone know what social engineering is? Not sure? Has anyone in here fallen for social engineering? Wow, someone's honest.
Nice.
All right, I'll ask an easier question. Do you know someone who's fallen for social engineering? Okay, so you didn't, but you know someone who did. Okay, got it. You also have a girlfriend from Canada or whatever. Got it. Okay, so, and it's Tina. Okay, let's talk about social engineering on the threat landscape. The session before us, if you were in here, you heard about Octotempest. That is a threat actor that Microsoft tracks that starts most of their attacks with social engineering, which I think is a really important thing on the landscape now, where we have to combine the human element and the technology that we're looking at. So we want to dive a little bit into social engineering to talk about things that we have reported on. And you can also check out a lot more social engineering information in the Microsoft Digital Defense Report. That's available on the Security Insider website. You can go really deep into social engineering. 90% of cred phishing attacks involve social engineering. So we'll talk a little bit about those. And let's kind of get into some of our questions. Has anyone ever heard the phrase, humans are the weakest link? Yeah, humans are the biggest risk. Huh. What can we do? Kill all humans? No. That was the AI talking. Yes, just take them out. So with that sentiment of like, humans are the biggest risk, humans are the problem, right? Stephanie, I want to start with you. Are humans the problem?
I mean, at some point, eventually, but not at the point where we're blaming the person who clicks on the email, who answers the phone, who lets someone into the building. I think that's such a cop-out to blame someone at the end of the day when really organizations don't do what they can to prepare people to identify these kinds of tests or have the technology in place or have it fine-tuned even to stop these attacks before they happen. So I'm not a fan of that phrase at all.
Okay, you'll let the humans live.
Yes.
Wei Min, are humans the problem?
I do not think they are. I mean, I echo what Stephanie said. I think, in terms of humans, right, they can be the weakest link if you let them. Kind of my philosophy is like for organizations, it's not a matter of if an employee gets compromised, but when, and what is your mitigation there to, limit the blast radius, limit kind of the effects of an employee that gets compromised. So I think, I don't agree with that, so.
Jack,
Yeah.
I've called you the weakest link in our prior work before. Are you human?
Goodbye. No, I think I like what Stephanie had to say around we shouldn't be blaming users who click on these things. I think the whole concept of victim blaming is, it's kind of gross, right? If one person clicking on a link is enough to topple your entire organization, then I think you have a bigger problem than the one person. It's easy to kind of assign blame. There's a clear action and then outcome, but really it's a lot bigger than that. And it starts with, a lot of different mitigations you can take to, like Wayman said, reduce that blast radius.
I think that's true too, and I'm a big fan of, never glorifying threat actors, always glorifying defenders. And so before we go any further, is anyone in the room a threat actor? Please leave. I'm gonna have to. Leave your contact information and then please leave. So we said earlier that only one of you in this entire room, thank you for being honest, only one of you has ever fallen for social engineering. Well, uh-oh, my slide didn't go. I have one more slide. Thank you. Here we go. Jack.
Here are two emails. One is legitimate, one
Jack's
is evil.
the problem here.
In this case, what, any wager, guesses here? On
Which
the
one's
left?
real? Which one's
If the
fake?
left is the one that's real, raise your hand. Okay, if the right one is real, raise your hand.
Oh, everyone
Okay,
thinks the one
all
on the
right.
right is real. Okay, raise your hand if you just have no idea. Okay, they
Awesome,
look really
yeah.
similar, right? Like they look really, really similar, and one of these is an actual fish. Jack, which one's the fish?
The fish is the one on the left. Yeah.
Oh, a lot of people got.
Yeah. So I mean, really, again, threat actors adopt pretty quickly to really common rhythms of business and deploying lures that make sense in the context we normally receive them. The email on the right is actually an actual email from DocuSign to my personal email. So again, it's pretty wild how quickly threat actors can adopt these templates and deploy them.
I think too, something to keep in mind is that this is a brand that most of us recognize. They sponsored the party the other night. Like DocuSign is a brand that people are using all the time. And if people are using it all the time, that means threat actors want to use it all the time too. So I'm going to ask a question for Jack. Jack is a detection engineer. That's where I met him, doing detection engineering years ago. So what have you seen in terms of social engineering tactics evolving? And then how are we responding to those evolving attacks from the detection side?
Yeah. I think one of the interesting social engineering angles for email in particular has been the emergence of QR codes in the bodies of emails or in attachments being sent via email. I think it's an interesting social engineering tactic just because in a post-COVID world, right, we got really used to scanning menus, scanning, all sorts of different things out in the wild. And so maybe it's not that far-fetched that your IT admin is sending you a QR code to reset your password. Obviously, that shouldn't really be a thing, but the point being, we got used to this behavior, and so threat actors are kind of abusing that. And it's actually kind of effective because what it does is take the threat away from the managed device, right? If you have a computer, you're probably on a network that's being monitored, it has security controls in place, but if you pull out your probably personal smartphone, scan a QR code, suddenly all of that activity is likely unmanaged. And that can be a real headache for IT and security professionals to understand, did we lose credentials? What was the blast radius, And so, I think that's a pretty interesting development. But from like a detection point of view, we just get better at reading QR codes, understanding where they go. At the end of the day, a QR code is basically a link, right? And so it goes somewhere, usually a website. And we can then perform kind of some dynamic and static analysis to understand where is it going, is it redirecting you, and all the different aspects that might be leading to a phish.
Has anyone here taken a picture of a QR code on their computer? Yeah. I just find it absurd to take pictures of my screen, so I don't do it. But I know a lot of people do. But I use QR codes on the menus. The menus get me every time. And so we have to know that we have URLs protected. I think that's really the key is that, like you said, a QR code is a URL. So let's talk a little bit more about tactics. We heard about QR codes as a tactic. Stephanie, what kind of vulnerabilities do humans have that you, as a professional social engineer, exploit?
Ooh, good question. So I think it comes down to human behavior is you want to help. And so that's something that we try to exploit. I know I sound like an awful person saying that out loud, but that's something that we try to exploit. So a lot of times when we're building our pretext or our lore, it's trying to see how we can tell them, we need your help, this is how you can help us. And typically, they do help, which is kind of scary. Some of the tactics we use when we're talking about that is we use authority, right? From when we were little, we were taught to obey authority, right? Your teachers, your parents. So we use authority, we use urgency. The more that I can start building these types of techniques into different types of social engineering campaigns, the more people tend to fall for them. So when we look at vulnerabilities, it's really understanding how people work at the end of the day and then just trying to weave in psychology to get them to do what we ask.
So rebel against authority is the message I took
absolutely.
out of that. Raise your hand if you feel like you are fully trained and armed to detect social engineering if it were leveraged against you. One, a little bit, something sort of, yeah. I feel like that's something that we're definitely struggling with in training and protecting people. The technology side, we have a lot of paths there, but getting you and your coworkers fully trained and feeling really strong about that is really hard. So, Stephanie, MFA is supposed to fix all this.
That's what we hear, right? I have a lot of clients that when I'm talking to them about phishing campaigns, they're like, oh no, we have MFA, we're safe.
Oh gosh.
That's not the case at all. There's actually multiple frameworks out there now that let you, from the attacker point of view, perform like an attacker in the middle. So you send an email or call them and give the target a website. They go to it and they put in their credentials and they receive that MFA token how they typically do. However, on the back end, me as the attacker, once they do that, I have their session and their cookies, and then I'm able to log in with them, even with MFA still in place. And so that can't be something that we rely on 100% anymore.
So, Wayman, I know that you love crimeware, and in fact, does everyone know the difference between APT and crimeware? APT is nation-sponsored, meaning typically cyber espionage. They're employees of their own country's government, and they do attacks as a threat actor against other governments or targets that help them achieve their espionage goals. So that's APT. Crimeware is just trying to get the money. So raise your hand if you like crimeware better. Raise your hand if you like APT. Oh, cool. Okay, crimeware won that easily.
Yeah.
So Wayman tracks a lot of financially motivated threat actors, especially some of the ones that we've talked about here today. What are some unique things that you've seen in the crimeware world in terms of social engineering?
Yeah, I think, looking at a lot of the attacks that occurred this year, there's kind of been a shift in social engineering being used differently than how it traditionally has. One of it is less reliance on like malware delivery, but more reliance on what Stephanie talked about, which is adversary in the middle type of attacks. So we've seen a lot of those come about this year. Some of the things that we've also seen is what Jack also mentioned is less reliance on corporate machines, but targeting of, like, for example, in the last talk, you heard about like SMS-based phishing attacks, going after personal devices, places where security companies cannot see or security teams cannot see that visibility. And then lastly, we've seen, what I like to call prep time. A lot of threat actors have now been focused on identifying and learning more about the different employees that work at companies to the point where they can either impersonate them, so they'll call help desk lines and say, hey, I work at this company, I need you to reset my password, or I need you to add this new device for my MFA, I just got a new phone. We've really seen kind of the gamut for this. It's kind of less on the traditional malware delivery side. So.
Okay, and so did everyone enjoy the DocuSign quiz? You want more of those? I don't have any more, but I do want to ask Jack. How do we know? Give us some tips. Like, everyone was looking at it. What do you use in your day-to-day job, and how can the audience tell when something's fake or real?
Yeah, I think a healthy dose of skepticism and a little bit of curiosity, right? Because when you look at these different things, there's usually something that's off, right? It could either be something very obvious, like the sender domain is strange, the URL you're going to click on looks bizarre, but it could be something bigger, like a process that you're not used to following, right? It might be breaking something that you're normally used to doing. So a lot of times just your gut instinct of, this seems off, this seems strange. And being able to kind of understand why and explore that feeling, I think is one of the better tools I use.
So, Stephanie, give me a tactic. Give me an example of something that works.
Okay. I could tell a story.
Okay, I'm going to have
Story time?
Stephanie tell a story time.
Okay.
And then I'm going to ask all of you if it would work on you, so be honest.
So I'm going to tell a story about a physical security assessment. A lot of what we're talking about here is more of the remote stuff, right? The phone calls, the emails. However, there's also on-site, like actually breaking and entering when we look at social engineering. So I had a client in downtown LA, and they had just put in tens of, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars in physical security gear, right? All of the latest and greatest. Like, all right, we want you to come on site, see if you can get access to inside the building, and if you can, we want you to drop USBs around to see if anybody plugs them in, and then we want you to talk to employees to see if you can actually talk them into plugging them in. So those are my only objectives. So breaking in, dropping USBs, and then actually talking to employees. And bet, right? Let's see what we can do. So I'm online, I'm looking at Google Maps at their location, and I can see, right, all these things that they have in place, which is fantastic. However, I wish I can say I do James Bond shit, but at the end of the day, the number one way I break into buildings is tailgating. It's kind of embarrassing, but it works. You can have so much money invested into your building, security, guards, whatever. But the way I was able to get in is I saw a side door that employees were using, right next to the employee-only parking lot, and followed them in. And so the lady who I'd followed in looked behind and kind of looked me up and down like, I don't recognize you. You probably shouldn't be here, but she didn't say anything. So I kept going. I walk in, I drop off USBs, and so I had one last objective, so I came back a few hours later, and my goal was to ask the receptionist, say, hey, I'm interviewing at the company next door. I spilled coffee all over my resume, which I had. Can you please print my resume for me off this USB? And it's working, and so we're talking. I'm making small talk with her. Meanwhile, I hear two voices behind me, and someone starts describing me to a T, what I was wearing, what I looked like, my characteristics. I'm like, what is going on? So I turn around, and it was the lady who I tailgated in was talking to a security guard. And he had his laptop open, like looking through footage and trying to get a still of me. And so I've probably never sweat so much in my life. But as they're sitting there doing this, I'm still talking to the receptionist. She opens up my file, which for some reason didn't work, but yay, it worked. And then I leave without getting caught. So we can kind of go into maybe later why that worked, but that is unfortunately something that happens pretty often.
Okay. Raise your hand if you've seen someone tailgate in before. Ooh, ouch.
Yeah.
That is a lot of people. You've seen that much tailgating. And I'm not going to ask, but I assume that everyone who raised their hand then reported that tailgating to someone somewhere, I hope. And then anybody plugging in mystery USB sticks, don't do that. That's my one, I think I have one tip for everyone in this audience. Easy peasy. Don't plug in random USB sticks into your computer. Make sure you know where they came from. Make sure that you know that they're yours. If not, drop them off at a front desk.
Or have those ports locked down, right? That's
Yeah.
something it should be pretty simple for a security team to hopefully do is don't even let employees plug them in. I've seen companies where they put hot glue in so nobody can actually physically plug it in. So sometimes there's creative ways outside of that.
Yeah, everyone needs to be really careful with those physical things because, you know, we talk a lot about like O days and vulnerabilities and everything. If you have local access, you're pretty much done. You don't
Yep.
need exploits and vulns, and you've got the
Yeah.
machine and the access that you want. So, Wayman, we've talked a little bit about some of the actors that you track. I want to understand the actors that you're tracking now. How are they using social engineering? And why do you think that their social engineering tactics are so effective? So like, what are they doing and why does it work?
Yeah, I mean, I can go into a threat actor called OctoTempest. For those of you who don't know, they're also known as Scattered Spider. They're typically engaged in financial gain through data theft and extortion. They also do ransomware deployment through Alfie or Black Cat. What's interesting about this group is that, they are Western primary English-speaking individuals, which is pretty new for the ransomware group, ransomware as a service economy. And the things that make them very efficient is what I talked about earlier. They do a lot of prep time. They really key in on the employees that work at whatever victim company they want to target, and they'll actually go and try to impersonate them. A lot of times they look for compromised identities, they look for data leaks, et cetera. So they'll go up and call a help desk and say, hey, I work at this company, here's my date of birth, here's my social, here's all these things that I know. But they'll forget key things. They'll forget, I don't know this employee, like my employee number, or I don't know like my email address. But the thing about them is that there's two sides of them. One, in the beginning, they're really nice. They'll talk with the help desk employee. Sometimes they have a script where they're like, oh, if this help desk employee is female, then talk about this, or if they're male, talk about this. But eventually, they'll get to the point where they can get the help desk employee to give them access, and then they go from there. Other times, though, when that doesn't work, they'll do a number of things, like they'll look for IT administrators that work at the company. They'll message them and say, hey, I work at the company, so-and-so told me to reach out to you to reset my password, and surprisingly, that has worked. And then lastly, the damaging part is that if they have a lot of information on an employee, they know where they live, date of birth, phone numbers, they'll actually try to extort them or try to say like, hey, if you don't give me your passwords now, then I'm going to send somebody to your house, or I'm going to do this to your spouse or whoever, here's your address, et cetera. They've done that numerous times. If you guys have seen our Microsoft Threat Intelligence blog on OctoTempest, you'll see some of that snippet there. But I think largely the way they've been successful is because they've taken the time to really increase their knowledge of the people that they're targeting.
So they're doing a lot of reconnaissance and research before they're doing the attacks?
They are, definitely. They'll look at people who work at these and find like their credit reports, find like all the background information.
So if you're interested in this threat actor that you just saw from the incident response team in the session prior and the threat actor that Wayman is talking about now, we do have a full podcast called OctoTempest on the Microsoft Threat Intelligence podcast app thingy, where they come from, that you can hear more about that. So I want to talk a little bit more about what's effective. I will start with my most effective lure that I have ever seen in my life. It was an email, and it had a SIG file logo at the bottom of a law firm. And it was a very short email, and it said, we have been contracted by your spouse to prepare your divorce papers. Click the link to download your copy. Let us know if you have any questions. So it was a real law firm with a real logo. Obviously, this was a fake email, but they found a law firm that does divorce, that is a family law practice. They used their real address, their real SIG file. It was completely authentic, except for the fact that it did come from a threat actor. They registered a domain that was a lookalike domain. And then they had a URL that you click, and it says, download here, and it leads to a malware infection. But the thing that I found really compelling about that, first, would anyone click on that in here? No, you wouldn't. Some people maybe. Okay. If you're not married. If you're not married, I want to see somebody else's divorce papers. So that's kind of the answer that I always say to people is, if you're not scared, you're curious. I'm going to name two people. Have you ever heard of Brad Pitt? Have you ever heard of Angelina Jolie? That's a divorce that everyone clicked on, right? And so the point is they put you in an emotional state of curiosity or fear or concern or confusion, and you do things that you wouldn't normally do because they've got that emotional hook into your psychology. They've put you in a state that you shouldn't be in. Divorce paper lore blows my mind every time. I love it. I just think it's so incredibly effective. So I'm going to start with Jack. What do you think is the most effective social engineering lore that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, the most effective one is the one that someone's going to click on or open, right? But how you get there, there's a lot of different avenues, right? We saw the DocuSign example. That wasn't really threatening. It wasn't really scary. It was just very mundane, regular rhythm of business. But the example Sherrod mentioned, I think, is interesting, right? Because it's playing on a different kind of thing, right? A reputation. And so we've seen some really effective lures targeting, well, as a group of activity targeting the hospitality industry. And they would kind of deploy these attacks in a sort of reply to fashion, meaning they would first send an email to, say, the front desk or whatever their general mailbox would be. And they would say, hey, I've been trying to get a hold of someone. I've been trying to reach someone. No one will get back to me. What the heck? And of course, hospitality, they're there to serve, right? Like, we want guests to have a good experience. So the front desk, or typically a manager, would reply and say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, there must have been an oversight. How can we help you? And then the threat actor follows up with an email saying, hey, I stayed at your property. I had bed bugs in my room. This is ridiculous. Like, I have hospital, bills. Like, you need to address this. And then they send a link, to a zip or an archive file that then contains malware. And yeah, they get a really high rate of response from these places because that could be a national news story, right? If a large hotel chain had an issue with bed bugs, or in some cases they're saying, hey, I have a disabled child, and these are the requirements for our stay to be safe for them. Who wouldn't open that, right? I mean, that's just kind of downright evil. But it plays on that reputation piece that a lot of people are afraid to have tarnished, and they typically want to help, again, playing into that human element of being helpful. And yeah, unfortunately, it can be effective. Another interesting one is the angle not of scary, everything's bad. If you don't click this right now, bad things are going to happen, but instead the opposite. So sometimes we'll see lures targeting people asking, hey, come speak at this conference, Hey, we want to do an interview with you. We're a national news outlet, and we want to interview you. And things that kind of, I think people's guards go down when it's that kind of scenario because, again, we're typically, you're coming after me, you're attacking me. But in this case, it's like, hey, no, we're bringing you in. Come on, we like you, And I think it can be effective in that way too.
Wayman, how about you? What's a really effective social engineering tactic you've seen or lure?
I think the most effective one that I've seen in a long time is by a threat actor known as Sangria Tempest, or Fin7. How many of you guys have heard about them? So one of their,
love Fin7.
Yeah. If you guys have been tracking them, prior to them joining ransomware, they targeted a lot of the restaurant industry, stealing payment card data. One of their most effective lures at the time was a food poisoning lure, where they would send phishing emails to these stores and say, hey, I bought a huge order from you. I went and, my whole company got food poisoning. We're super sick. Open this attachment and you'll see the list of things that happened to us by eating your food. And that surprisingly worked on a lot of people. Fin7 actually took a step further, and if you guys are tracking them in the past, they're primarily Eastern European, so they would normally have an accent. What they did was they actually hired people on underground forums that spoke English to call these stores and say, and have them guide them through that phishing email lure to the point where they would detonate and run that malware. So that one was pretty effective. Fin7 has stolen tens of millions of payment card data through that process.
Yeah, Fin7 was really active a couple years ago, and they keep evolving.
They're my white whale, so.
Oh, if anybody knows how to get a hold of Fin7,
Yeah.
let's get that for Wayman.
We've gotten 3 so far, 3 folks, but.
Nice, yeah. So Stephanie, what's an effective lure?
Yeah, so I have a story of my most successful phishing campaign.
Okay,
So are y'all familiar with Glassdoor? Right? It's
the website for reviews, yeah.
Yep. So that's when we go out and we do our recon before we craft that phishing email for a client. So we look at Glassdoor because there's a section, they're literally called pros and cons. So employees go and they talk about what they love about the company, what they hate about the company, and it's a fantastic place to find information. So this organization we're going to do a phishing campaign for, we were able to identify on Glassdoor that everyone hated the parking situation. It was a pretty large building, but a very small parking lot. So everyone always had issues. And this was complaints dating from last week to 5 years ago. So it's an ongoing issue. So we knew we had to create something around parking. And then we were able to identify different people on LinkedIn, such as a facilities manager and people who would probably interact with people who had these kinds of issues. And so when we crafted the email, we impersonated the facilities manager. We bought a typo squatted domain, so it looked almost identical to their legitimate domain. And we said, hey, starting on Monday, we're going to have assigned parking. If you aren't in your assigned parking spot, your vehicle will be towed. And so we sent out an attachment with a map, and that one was so successful because we played off something that everyone struggled, and we came in and promised something better. It actually got to the point where I think after 4 hours of sending, my client called me, he's like, all right, you need to stop. I'm like, I can't stop. I sent an email, like I can't stop anymore. But it was highly successful because we really understood the problems of the organization. Between that and just doing recon in general, the more you really understand a target company and maybe even who to impersonate, the more successful your campaign will be.
That's really interesting. So you've learned here, since we've been up here, that social engineering really depends upon an emotional hook. So with the parking email, let's say you've got these parking problems. What are some of the emotions? Just shout them out. What are some of the emotions you think those people were having when they got that? Frustration, anger, mad. Maybe they want to quit. They're sick of it. Yeah. So you're getting people hot.
Yep.
And getting them to take action that they wouldn't normally take.
Yep.
So is anyone familiar with the concept of AI? If you've been here at Ignite, you've been hearing a lot about AI. So we are absolutely seeing deepfakes. Deepfakes are the ability to recreate the likeness of a person, their voice, sometimes their video. We are seeing that in AI-generated content. So I want to start with Jack. Where do you see AI and deepfakes going? What might happen? Give me a little bit of a prediction.
Yeah, from just observations and kind of thinking in the future, we already see evidence of deepfakes being used in lures, especially around some of these nation-state actors, mainly because in these cases they want to tailor these lures to a specific kind of target, right? So they'll use AI to create videos or generate news articles, things that are going to entice that target to click on it. So I think that's one very interesting angle that we've seen kind of this deepfake technology being deployed. From an AI perspective, I think everyone's very concerned about, it's going to help threat actors craft better phishing emails, things like that. But, I think most high-end phishing actors don't really have a problem with that. Where I see AI kind of being maybe used in nefarious ways is helping threat actors generate kind of the back-end code. So say, for example, they have, they're working with Evil Jinx, which is an actor in the middle, bypass tool. Phishing tool, and maybe they can say, okay, I want to target this company, generate a template for me to deploy an Evil Jinx server to go against this company, and it could help them accelerate their ability to craft these custom kind of phishing profiles and extend their capabilities in a way that maybe they can't figure out on their own today.
Wayman, how about you? Anything you're seeing on the AI landscape or think we might see in the future?
Yeah, I think there's two things. One is the use of voice modification type software to kind of enhance these calls that these threat actors are making. And then lastly, when I talked about the reconnaissance and prep times, making it easier for threat actors to get more information quickly or finding the resources they need to target the companies.
Stephanie, how about you? Have you been seeing any AI deepfakes?
Yeah, so we've actually gotten to put it to test. So I actually put out a research paper a couple weeks ago. And I had the thought of I was asking myself, how can I use AI, right? How can I improve any type of assessments I'm doing for my clients? And I was like, well, first I have to see if it actually works. So I had an organization who agreed to it beforehand. And we did A/B testing. So we took half of their employees and we sent them a human-generated phishing email. So we went about it how we normally would. So we went out and did our recon and we developed it just as we would. And then we actually had AI generate a phishing email. And before we sent things out, if you would have asked me my prediction, I said humans, hand down, would win. We're still so far away from AI getting to that point. But after I started doing some prompt engineering and to really craft this, have AI craft this email, I started getting nervous. The emails were getting pretty good, to the point where when we sent it out, I had no clue what was going to happen. And it turned out that, so the organization we sent it to, their average click rate was 8%. The human-generated one received 14%, and the AI-generated one received 11%. So still, both of those got higher click rates than their average, but it was close, which kind of terrifies me. I still feel like I have job security, so I'm not too worried. But what's the future gonna look like? Man, I don't know. I don't know.
Is everyone in here using ChatGPT? Is everyone using it literally every day for everything? I use it every day. I have the app on my phone. Like, I use it
Yeah.
constantly. I paid for it.
Yeah.
Like, it's changed my life. Had it plan an entire party for me. Like, it's fantastic. So let's start talking a little bit about solutions. We've talked a lot about the problem. We've talked a lot about the threat landscape. So let's talk a little bit about ways to solve some of these social engineering threats. I want to go to each of you, and I want you to give me one thing that you would recommend an organization do. Stephanie, I'll start with you. What's one thing an organization can do to make themselves stronger against that SE threat?
I would say to start, you have to assess, right? You have to know where you are, both with your technology and your people, and then you kind of move from there. But I think that's a way that most organizations should at least start with, to know where they stand to fix whatever issues they may have.
Wayman, what's one thing an organization can do?
I would say to protect your highly privileged users. So your help desk shouldn't be allowed to reset the password for your global administrator. They shouldn't be able to add new MFA devices without some additional verification. I think that's probably what I would suggest.
Jack, one thing?
Yeah, I think embrace defense in depth practices. So making sure that, to the left of the user, you have several security solutions and barriers in place, and then to the right of the user, if they are compromised, you have more things downstream that will help identify or alert to the fact that someone might have got phished or attacked.
I think something I'd really like organizations to do that's systemic and cultural is make your relationships better. Make sure that if you're in a security or an IT help desk role, that the people in your organization are comfortable telling you when something weird happened. Don't give a cultural impression of, oh yeah, you're so stupid, or oh, these users. It really needs to be about, hey man, I saw a DocuSign comparison and I couldn't tell which one was real. I was just at Microsoft Ignite and it was really hard to tell. So when one of those people comes to you and says, this is weird, even if they're just a coworker or it's just kind of somebody in your team, make sure that you feel open and communicative and receptive to them kind of saying like, this is weird. And you go, yeah, that's weird. Let's check this out a little bit more for you. Fostering that interaction and that good relationship, I think, is really important. So that's for organizations. Let's quickly say, everybody in here, they're all probably going to maybe see friends and family next week and over the next couple of months. What do you think we should be thinking about? One piece of advice for friends and family.
Yeah, so I think most of us are familiar with the trust but verify piece. I think it kind of should be flipped, right? Verify then trust. That order never made sense to me. But I think when we're talking to friends and family who maybe don't understand the scams that they're seeing, is they have to make sure that it's legitimate first before they can proceed. So you're getting an email from UPS saying that you owe money, call UPS directly. Don't use any of the information it says in the text or email or phone call. Look it up, call them, and then ask about it. That right there could have probably stopped so many scams from actually happening against our loved ones.
Wayman, one thing we can give as advice?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same thing as Stephanie said. I think you just stop and take the time to look at what's being in front of you. Go through your usual channels, not whatever's presented on like a text message or email. Go through your usual channels to verify that information before you move on with it.
Jack, what are the friends and family going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think a healthy dose of skepticism, like we mentioned earlier, trusting your gut, but ultimately, crowdsource some of these things, right? Ask your community, right? Ask your friends and family, right? I would imagine a lot of folks here are the tech support for their family, but when I get a phone call from my parents and, hey, USPS just sent me a text message. I'm like, no, they didn't, but thank you for calling. It's always about fostering that open door where it's like, no, I want you to come to me because I can help you understand this stuff, right? And building that healthy communication is a good way to ensure that people stay safe.
Raise your hand if you're going to travel over the next month or so. When you get to that family member's house, patch their router because you know they have not done it. That router is 20 years old and was given to them by their ISP. Go run the updates on it. Be kind. I think everybody needs to patch their home hardware. It's such a problem. And I'll give a takeaway too for your friends and family. I did a lot of work with BEC and gift card. So there's a attack chain where if a CEO is in the news, employees get a text that says, hey, this is your CEO by name. I need you to go buy gift cards. We've got to give some gifts to the administrative assistants. It's Secretary's Day, whatever it may be. It's really important you go get these gift cards. They manufacture this sense of urgency. Is everyone familiar with this gift card this gift card attack chain? That is one that I think everyone needs to be aware of because it hits both consumers and those in corporate environments. Sometimes it'll say, hey, this is a family member or friend. I'm in trouble. I need you to go buy me gift cards and send me what the back of them look like. We investigated a situation where someone had gone to a retailer, a common drugstore retailer, and was asking to buy $5,000 worth of gift cards. And the employee said, hey, customer, I'm really sorry, I think you're being scammed. And the customer said, absolutely not. Employee emails their manager and says, I've got a customer here who wants to buy $5,000 gift card. I know this is not okay. And it went back and forth, and they called the sheriff to come. And the sheriff said, pretty sure this is a scam, you don't want to do this. The customer left and went to a different location of the same drugstore where the employee sold them $5,000 worth of gift cards. And so stopping and checking these things, even if it's not you who's going to suffer, I think that's the right thing to do culturally now. And I think it's really important for all of us to think about those things. Gift cards are huge, as is, if you've ever gotten the text message that asks you if you want to sell a piece of property, those are really huge. And I would say, do not respond to them. I know it's tempting. All of us want to mess with them. Yeah, I want to sell it. Don't do that either, because then they know someone's there. They know that there's a real person on the other end, and they might not continue that attack chain. They might go through another attack chain and do some other attacks in a different way. So everyone thrives on connection. Social engineering is all about leveraging those human relationships and human emotions and psychology, putting people into an emotional state that they wouldn't normally be in. I want to thank my awesome panelists. Please give them a warm thank you. I love this because these are my actual friends. So it's so cool to actually be able to work with them like this. And thank you all for coming. We have 1 minute for one question. Does anyone have a final question?
Is a phone call scam is still a thing?
Phone calls are definitely still a thing.
Especially now against help desk. We're seeing that. I'm getting requested all the time. Can you reset passwords? The answer is 7 out of 10 times yes, we can.
So you're saying 7 out of 10 times when you call help desk pretending to be an employee that you can get them to reset the password under your false pretenses?
Within a matter of 2 weeks, we can get there, yes.
Yeah, conversely too, we've seen a large amount of activity around receiving emails that say, hey, thanks for your purchase. Here's your receipt, and it has an actual PayPal, Norton Antivirus, Best Buy, Geek Squad, whatever the case may be. And it's really interesting because there's nothing malicious in the PDF, right? It's not an exploit, it's not a link, but there's a phone number to call, and that's where the activity takes place, right?
I've got 30 seconds just for you.
So I know, for email verification, right? For email verification, there is DMARC, DKIM for the authenticity, right?
DMARC, DKIM, SPF, heck
Are
yeah.
are we doing something in the AI space, right, to authenticity to avoid deep fake, right? Is there any signature? Is there anything happening in that space?
I don't know if there's anything happening in the space in AI in terms of DMARC, DKIM, SPF authentication for emails. However, I do know that many governments across the world globally are now requiring that your DMARC and DKIM and SPF are set up properly and that you are set up for reject. So keep that in mind. We are fully out of time. Please go to Microsoft.com Security Insider if you'd like to learn more. Thank you so much. Give us a warm panel. Thank you. Have a great night.